In 1966, when Jay Sarno opened Caesar's Palace with $24 million of borrowed Teamsters money, he promised every guest could feel like an emperor. No one inferior, everyone a Caesar. But how did the most revolutionary resort in Las Vegas history go from a palace of spectacle to a cautionary tale of corporate excess? The answer rewrites everything you thought you knew about the rise and fall of Caesar's Palace. Jay Sarno was never content to dream small. In the early 1960s, he set his sights on something Las Vegas had never seen: a palace of pure fantasy, where every guest would be treated like Roman royalty. But dreams that big needed serious backing. The answer came in the form of $24 million, a staggering sum at the time, funneled in large part from the Teamsters Union Pension Fund. Behind the paperwork, names like Jimmy Hoffa and Alan Dorfman signed off on the loans, their influence reaching from union halls to the Strip. Sarno and his partner, Nate Jacobson, took the risk, betting everything on the idea that spectacle could trump skepticism. Construction swallowed up the millions as marble, fountains, and gold leaf transformed a patch of desert into a Roman wonderland. Sarno insisted on details that bordered on obsession. The spelling of Caesars, no apostrophe, was no accident. Every guest was meant to feel like Caesar, not a visitor in someone else's kingdom. Why should people feel inferior when they come here? They should feel like Caesar, he declared. That philosophy shaped every decision, from the uniforms to the architecture. On August 5, 1966, Caesar's Palace opened its doors with a party that cost $1 million by itself. Senators and celebrities mingled over 2 tons of filet mignon, 300 pounds of Maryland crab, and the largest private order of Ukrainian caviar ever placed. Champagne flowed in 50,000 glasses. Cocktail waitresses in Greco-Roman wigs greeted each guest with, "Welcome to Caesar's Palace. I am your slave." By morning, headlines across the country declared Las Vegas had a new emperor. The gamble paid off. $42 million in advance bookings flooded in, and Sarno's vision became reality. Roman columns soared higher than any seen before in Las Vegas, engineered not just for strength, but for spectacle. Marble statues lined the entrance, each carved to reinforce the illusion that guests were stepping into another world. The Garden of the Gods pool, Olympic-sized and flanked by white stone, offered a setting straight from a Roman epic. Sarno's vision demanded more than just looks. He wanted service that matched the grandeur. Caesar's Palace became the first resort on the Strip to offer 24-hour room service, a promise that luxury would never sleep. Gourmet restaurants replaced the standard casino buffet, serving dishes that rivaled the best kitchens in New York or Paris. Staff wore custom-designed uniforms, some in togas, others in tailored suits, each role carefully scripted to immerse guests in the fantasy. Even the signage was part of the performance, with a monumental marquee designed to draw in travelers from far down the Strip. Every detail, from the gold-trimmed elevators to the hand-painted ceilings, worked together to erase the outside world. For the first time, Las Vegas offered not just a place to gamble, but a destination where every visitor could feel like the ruler of an empire. The property itself became a living stage, with guests as both audience and star, surrounded by comforts and spectacle that had never before been possible on American soil. Caesar's Palace didn't just define Las Vegas, it became its beating heart. In the 1970s and 80s, the property reached a level of spectacle that no rival could touch. On New Year's Eve 1967, Evel Knievel faced the fountains in a stunt that would become legend. The crowd watched as he roared toward the ramp, soared over the water, and crashed in a tangle of limbs and chrome. Knievel broke dozens of bones and spent nearly a month in a coma. The jump was a disaster for him, but a triumph for Caesars. Headlines circled the globe, and the image of the fountains, impossible and dangerous, became a symbol of Vegas bravado. Inside the palace, entertainment reached new heights. Frank Sinatra ruled the showroom, collecting a $20,000 weekly consulting fee and drawing crowds that included royalty and mobsters alike. The residency model was born here, with stars like Sammy Davis Jr. and Diana Ross commanding sums unheard of anywhere else. Caesars became the gold standard for headliners, setting a template every other casino scrambled to follow. Boxing matches turned the property into a sports mecca. Muhammad Ali's fights and championship bouts drew thousands, while the casino floor buzzed with celebrities, high rollers, and hopefuls. Even Hollywood couldn't resist. In 1988, Rain Man placed Caesars at the center of American pop culture, forever linking its marble halls to the fantasy of Las Vegas luck. Jay Sarno, the man who dreamed it all, died in 1984. His passing closed the chapter on the age of the showman, but the palace he built stood as proof that myth could be manufactured, and that, for a time, there was nowhere on earth quite like Caesars. In 1995, the era of independent vision at Caesars Palace ended when ITT Corporation, known for the Sheraton hotel chain, acquired Caesars World for $1.7 billion. This brought the palace under the control of a sprawling conglomerate, where the bottom line began to matter more than the guest list. The next handoff came quickly. By 1999, Park Place Entertainment, spun out from Hilton's gaming division, purchased the Caesars properties, adding them to a growing portfolio of casino assets. The Palace, once the singular star of Las Vegas, became one property among many, its identity diluted as corporate managers prioritized expansion above all else. The real turning point arrived in January 2008. Private equity giants, Apollo Global Management and TPG Capital, closed a $31 billion leverage buyout of what was now Harrah's Entertainment, parent company of Caesars. The deal loaded the company with more than $24 billion in new debt. The ink on the contracts was barely dry when the global financial crisis hit. Interest payments alone devoured billions each year, forcing management to shift focus from showmanship to survival. Wall Street's financial playbook replaced Sarno's obsession with spectacle, and every decision became a calculation to service debt. The palace built on dreams now carried the weight of a corporate empire teetering on the edge, as the story of Caesars shifted from legendary luxury to a high-stakes struggle against the clock. Las Vegas felt the shock of the financial crisis almost overnight. Visitor numbers dropped, and the high-stakes gamblers who once filled the palace suites vanished. Caesars Palace, burdened with billions in debt, faced impossible choices. In the corridors where staff once greeted guests by name, layoffs swept through every department. Housekeepers who had worked the same floors for decades were let go with little warning. Concierge desks, once staffed by experts who could arrange anything from a last-minute show ticket to a private jet, stood empty more often than not. The company's operating arm, Caesars Entertainment Operating Company, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in January 2015, seeking relief from $18 billion in debt. For the employees who remained, the palace felt changed. Maintenance requests stacked up. Rooms went uncleaned for days during busy weekends. Guests who remembered the golden era now faced long waits and tired faces behind the counter. The bankruptcy filings told a story of numbers, but the real cost played out in the lives of workers and guests, as the empire's foundation quietly crumbled. Room rates at Caesars Palace now come with a daily resort fee exceeding $50, a charge that stings for guests who remember when luxury was simply part of the stay. The promise that every visitor would feel like Caesar has faded into a two-tier system. High rollers still find themselves swept into private lounges and upgraded suites, but the average guest faces long lines and inconsistent service. The property solution for those seeking true luxury is the Nobu Hotel, a boutique enclave carved out of the palace itself, with 181 rooms priced well above the standard towers. Nobu's separate check-in and curated amenities highlight the growing divide. Inside the same building, one guest is offered a scented towel and a smile, while another waits with luggage in a crowded lobby. The Garden of the Gods pool complex, once the centerpiece of Vegas opulence, now feels like a relic. Its Roman statues watching over half-filled cabanas, and guests calculating whether the extra fees are worth it. Online reviews echo the sense of decline, praise for the location and the grandeur, but frustration with hidden charges and aging rooms. The missing apostrophe in Caesars once meant every guest was an emperor. Today, it's a reminder of a promise that's been quietly rewritten. On August 5, 1966, Caesars Palace opened its doors after a $24 million investment, setting a new standard for Las Vegas hospitality. Jay Sarno's vision of luxury for all guests transformed the industry and made Caesars a global icon. But documented shifts, from the 2008 leveraged buyout that left the company with over $24 billion in debt, to the 2015 bankruptcy and the 2020 Eldorado merger, show how financial engineering steadily replaced showmanship. Today, resort fees top $50 per night, service quality lags, and guest reviews reflect a loss of the original magic. Some internal financial details and decision-making documents from the private equity era remain undisclosed, leaving unanswered questions about specific choices that shaped the decline. What is clear from the available evidence? Once a brand abandons its founding purpose in pursuit of short-term profits, the damage can be lasting. Caesars Palace still stands, but the empire that redefined Las Vegas is gone.